The conference hall held 800 people, but I only saw four. My mother, father, and two brothers sat in the third row, their smiles polished like the champagne flutes they held. They'd come to watch me fail one last time. What they didn't know was that in exactly 7 minutes, the CEO would call my name, and everything they believed about me would shatter under stage lights. I adjusted my blazer, feeling the weight of 5 years of silence pressing against my chest. This wasn't revenge, it was reckoning. The Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom smelled like lilies and ambition. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across tables draped in white linen, each one numbered with gold placards. I stood near the back wall, champagne untouched in my hand, watching the crowd mingle like schools of fish, elegant and purposeful. My name badge read Natalie Reeves, Senior Analytics Consultant. 3 months ago, it had read Junior Associate. 6 months before that, I was filing reports no one read and answering emails marked urgent that never were. But tonight was different. Tonight, the email I'd received yesterday morning still glowed behind my eyes every time I blinked. Subject, Annual Leadership Summit, Special Recognition. Natalie, your presence is required on stage during the keynote. Be ready at 7:45 p.m., confidential until announced. Executive office. I hadn't told anyone, not my roommate, not my mentor, and definitely not them. Across the ballroom, my mother laughed at something a stranger said, her pearl necklace catching the light. My father stood beside her, hands in his pockets, scanning the room with the bored authority of someone used to being important. My brothers, Marcus and Joel, flanked them like bodyguards, both in expensive suits they hadn't paid for themselves. They looked like they belonged here. I looked like I was still trying to. That's what they'd always thought anyway. Growing up, our house was a museum of Marcus and Joel's achievements. Trophies lined the mantel, certificates covered the hallway walls. Their names were spoken with reverence at dinner parties, each accomplishment a point of pride my mother would recount with perfect timing. Marcus just made partner at 29. Joel closed a deal worth 7 figures last quarter. When people asked about me, the pause was always too long. Natalie, oh, she's figuring things out. I was 12 the first time I understood what the pause meant. It was career day at school, and my mother came to talk about her work in real estate. Afterward, Marcus presented his science project, a model volcano that actually erupted. The teacher clapped. Mom beamed. I sat in the back row holding my essay on marine biology, the one I'd spent 3 weeks researching. When the bell rang, Mom walked past me without stopping. Grab your brother's poster board carefully, she said. It needs to last through the district competition. I carried it to the car while Marcus talked about his next project. My essay stayed in my backpack unread. That night at dinner, Dad raised his glass. To Marcus, future scientist. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to remember. She didn't. It became a pattern. Every achievement of mine was met with lukewarm acknowledgement or redirected attention. Every failure was dissected like evidence. When I got into college, a good one, the kind people brag about, my mother's first words were, "Did you apply for financial aid? We've already covered your brother's tuitions." I had. I'd also applied for 17 scholarships and landed 3. I paid my own way through 4 years of late night shifts and ramen dinners while my brothers called home asking for rent money that always appeared. Senior year, when I told them I'd landed an internship at Grayson and Partners, a mid-tier consulting firm in Seattle, Joel laughed. Consulting? That's where people go when they don't know what they actually want to do. Marcus added, "You'll burn out in a year. That industry chews people up." My father nodded slowly, as if considering a business proposal. "Maybe you should think about something more stable. Admin work, HR maybe." "I'm good at analysis," I said quietly. "You're good at being overlooked," my mother corrected, not unkindly, just factually. "You've never had the personality for high-pressure environments, Natalie. It's okay to know your limits." I smiled, agreed, then moved to Seattle 2 weeks later without telling them my start date. The first year at Grayson and Partners was hell. Not because of the work. I could handle 60-hour weeks in spreadsheets that made my eyes burn. It was the invisibility that hurt. In meetings, my ideas were absorbed and repeated by louder voices. My reports were forwarded up the chain without my name attached. I once spent 3 weeks building a financial model that saved a client $2 million. The credit went to my manager, Todd, who presented it as a team effort. While I sat in the back row taking notes, I didn't complain. Complaining was for people who expected fairness. I learned long ago that fairness was a story other families told. But I did start documenting everything, every email, every project, every late night when I was the last one in the office. The city lights outside my window, the only company I had. One night, around 11 p.m., I was refining a market analysis when my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Marcus just got promoted to senior partner. We're so proud. Dinner this weekend to celebrate. I stared at the screen. No, how are you? No, how's Seattle? Just Marcus. I typed. Can't make it. Busy with a project. Her reply came instantly. You're always busy with something that doesn't matter. I set the phone down and went back to work. But her words stayed, circling my mind like vultures. That's when I made the decision. I wasn't going to prove them wrong with words. I was going to prove them wrong with results. So undeniable, they couldn't be ignored, rewritten, or credited to someone else. I stopped going to family dinners, stopped calling, stopped posting on social media. I became a ghost in their lives, which was easy because I'd always been one anyway. And in that silence, I built something they never saw coming. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning, 14 months into my time at Grayson and Partners. I was presenting to a potential client, a tech startup looking to optimize their supply chain. I'd spent 6 weeks on the pitch, modeling 3 different scenarios, stress testing variables, building projections so tight they could survive any question. Halfway through my presentation, Todd interrupted. Great foundation, Natalie. I'll take it from here. He stood up, smiled at the clients, and began reframing my work as if it were his own. Not once did he mention my name. Not once did he look back at me. The clients nodded, took notes, asked questions. Todd answered by paraphrasing my research. When the meeting ended, they shook his hand. Brilliant work, Todd. We're in. I sat frozen in my chair, the remote still in my hand, my slides frozen on the screen behind me. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in the office, staring at the contract I'd just helped win. My name appeared once in the metadata of the PowerPoint file. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Todd's boss, Catherine Ewan, Senior VP of Strategy. I attached every document, every email thread, every piece of evidence showing whose work had won that contract. Then I sat there for 20 minutes, cursor hovering over send. Finally, I pressed it. The reply came at 6 a.m. the next morning. Natalie, let's talk. My office. 9 a.m. Catherine Ewan was the kind of woman who didn't waste time on niceties. She was 52, sharp-eyed, and had built her career in rooms full of men who underestimated her exactly once. When I walked into her office, she gestured to the chair across from her without looking up from her screen. I reviewed everything you sent, she said. Todd's been reassigned. You're taking over his portfolio. I blinked. Just like that? She finally looked at me. Do you want the job or not? I do. Good. Because I've been watching you for a while, Natalie. You're the kind of person who doesn't need credit to do excellent work. That's rare, but it's also a problem. How? Because excellent people who don't demand recognition get used, and then they leave. She leaned back in her chair. I don't want you to leave. I want you to lead. Over the next 18 months, Catherine became my mentor. Not in this soft, hand-holding way. She was too pragmatic for that. She taught me how to speak in rooms that didn't want to listen, how to present work so clearly that credit couldn't be stolen, how to build alliances without compromising my integrity. She also told me something I never forgot. Your family taught you to be invisible. This company tried to keep you that way, but you're done with that now, aren't you? I nodded. Good, then let's make sure everyone knows your name. By the end of year 2, I'd led 3 major projects. By year 3, I was managing a team of 12. By year 4, I was presenting directly to the executive board. And then, 6 months ago, Catherine called me into her office again. The CEO wants to create a new role, VP of Strategic Innovation. It's never existed before. You'd be building the department from scratch. My heart stopped. Why me? Because you've been doing the job for 2 years without the title. And because when I asked the board who could handle it, your name came up 5 times before anyone else's. I accepted on the spot. The announcement was set for the annual Leadership Summit, the company's biggest event of the year. Over 800 people, press, clients, investors. And then 3 weeks ago, Catherine asked me a question that changed everything. Do you want to invite your family? I hadn't spoken to them in nearly 4 years. Not since the last awkward Christmas, where I'd sat at the table listening to Marcus and Joel talk about their achievements while I ate mashed potatoes in silence. Why would I do that? I asked. Catherine smiled. Because they told you you'd never make it, and I think it's time they saw what never looks like. So I sent the invitations. Formal, impersonal, just the facts. You are cordially invited to Grayson and Partners Annual Leadership Summit. Guest of honor Natalie Reeves. They RSVP'd within hours. Back in the ballroom, the lights dimmed. A voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The keynote will begin in 5 minutes. I moved toward the stage entrance, my heels clicking against marble. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I'd practiced this moment 100 times in my mind, but now that it was here, it felt surreal. Backstage, Catherine stood waiting. She handed me a glass of water. You ready? I think so. You've earned this, Natalie, not because of them, not in spite of them, just because of you. I nodded, took a sip of water, set the glass down. The CEO, Raymond Grayson, stepped onto the stage to applause. He was 67, silver-haired, with the kind of voice that commanded rooms effortlessly. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we celebrate not just our successes, but the people who make them possible. The crowd settled. I could see my family from the side of the stage, my mother adjusting her necklace, my father checking his phone, Marcus whispering something to Joel. This year, Raymond continued, we're doing something unprecedented. For the first time in our company's history, we're creating a new C-suite position, Vice President of Strategic Innovation. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This role requires vision, discipline, and a track record of results. We needed someone who doesn't just follow strategy, they create it. Someone who's proven they can lead quietly and deliver loudly. My mother leaned forward slightly. My father set his phone down. This person joined us 5 years ago as a junior associate. In that time, they've led 19 successful projects, managed over 40 client relationships, and generated $67 million in new revenue. Joel frowned. Marcus straightened in his seat. Raymond smiled. It's my honor to introduce Grayson and Partners' first ever VP of Strategic Innovation, Natalie Reeves. The applause was immediate, thunderous. Lights swung toward the stage entrance. I walked out slowly, deliberately. Every step felt like erasing a memory. Every second under those lights felt like proof. When I reached the podium, Raymond shook my hand and stepped aside. The ballroom stretched before me. 800 faces, some familiar, most not. But in the third row, 4 faces stood out. My mother's smile had frozen. My father's expression was blank, unreadable. Marcus and Joel sat rigid, their champagne flutes forgotten. I let the silence settle, let them see me fully for the first time. Then I spoke. Thank you, Raymond, and thank you to everyone here tonight. My voice was steady, clear. I'd rehearsed this speech a dozen times, but now the words felt different. Heavier, sharper, more mine. 5 years ago, I came to this company without connections, without a safety net, without anyone telling me I could do this. I came with a laptop, a one-way ticket to Seattle, and the belief that if I worked hard enough, it would matter. I paused, scanning the crowd. Some of you have watched me grow here. Some of you gave me chances I didn't think I deserved. Some of you challenged me when I needed it most. And some of you... I let my eyes drift to the third row, just for a second. Didn't think I'd last a year. A ripple of laughter, polite and knowing. But I did. Because I learned early that waiting for permission is another way of staying invisible. And I was tired of being invisible. My mother shifted in her seat. This role isn't just a title to me. It represents every late night I stayed in the office alone. Every presentation I gave to rooms that didn't know my name. Every time I chose silence over recognition. Because the work mattered more than the credit. I gripped the podium, feeling the weight of every word. To everyone who believed in me before I believed in myself, thank you. To everyone who didn't, thank you for teaching me that I didn't need your approval to succeed. The applause started slowly, then built. People stood. The lights felt warmer. I stepped back from the podium, nodding once to Raymond, then walked off stage as the applause continued. Backstage, Catherine was waiting. She didn't say anything, just handed me my phone. On the screen, 17 missed calls, 6 voicemails, 12 texts, all from my family. I turned the phone off and slipped it into my pocket. Ready for the reception? Catherine asked. Actually, I said, I think I need some air first. I found him in the lobby, standing near the marble fountain like a portrait of confusion. My mother saw me first. Her smile was tentative, apologetic in a way I'd never seen before. Natalie, sweetheart, we had no idea. I know, I said, cutting her off gently. You weren't supposed to. My father stepped forward. That was impressive. Vice president. That's a significant role. It is. Marcus cleared his throat. Why didn't you tell us what you were working on? We could have. Could have what? I asked, my voice calm. Celebrated, supported me, believed in me. I let the questions hang. You didn't do that when I had nothing. I don't need you to do it now that I have everything. My mother's eyes glistened. We never meant to make you feel invisible, I finished, unimportant, like I'd never measure up to Marcus and Joel. The silence was thick, suffocating. Joel spoke quietly. We didn't know it felt like that. Yes, you did, I said. You just didn't care. My father's jaw tightened. That's not fair, Natalie. We've always wanted what's best for you. No, Dad. You wanted what was easiest. It was easier to focus on Marcus and Joel because their success was loud. Mine was quiet. And quiet things don't get noticed in our family. My mother reached for my hand. I stepped back. I'm not angry, I said, and I meant it. I'm just done. Done proving myself. Done waiting for you to see me. Done carrying the weight of your expectations or lack of them. Marcus opened his mouth and closed it. I invited you here tonight because I wanted you to see what I built. Not for your approval, not for your pride, just so you'd know. I adjusted my blazer, the same one I'd worn when I signed my promotion contract. Now you do. I turned and walked toward the ballroom doors. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, small and fractured. Natalie, please. I stopped but didn't turn around. I'm proud of you, she said. I closed my eyes, took a breath. I know you are. Now. Then I walked back into the ballroom, where the reception was in full swing, and let the doors close behind me. The rest of the night passed in a blur of congratulations, handshakes, and champagne I didn't drink. People I'd worked with for years came up to me with smiles that felt real, and strangers introduced themselves like I was someone worth knowing. Catherine found me near the end of the night, standing by the windows overlooking the city. Your family leave? I think so. How do you feel? I thought about it, turned the question over in my mind like a stone. Lighter, I said finally. She nodded. Good. That's what freedom feels like. We stood there in companionable silence, watching the city lights flicker like a constellation of second chances. You know, Catherine said, when I first met you, you reminded me of myself at 25. Brilliant. Invisible. Convinced that if you just worked hard enough, someone would finally see you. So it's what changed. I stopped waiting to be seen. I made myself impossible to ignore. She looked at me. You've done that now. The question is, what do you do next? I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time in my life, I had the space to figure it out. 3 days later, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Just my name written in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a photo. Old, faded. Me at age 7, holding a ribbon from a school science fair. Second place. I remembered that day, how my mother had been too busy with Marcus's soccer game to come. How I'd walked home alone, the ribbon clutched in my small hand, wondering why no one had stayed to watch. Beneath the photo was a note. I found this cleaning out the attic. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe I always knew you'd prove me wrong. I'm sorry it took so long to say it. Mom. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I placed it back in the box and set it on my bookshelf, next to my frame promotion announcement. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. That night, I sat at my desk in my new corner office, the one with floor to ceiling windows overlooking downtown Seattle, and opened my laptop. The email cursor blinked patiently. I began typing. 2. All staff. From Natalie Reeves, VP of Strategic Innovation. Subject: New Beginnings Team. Thank you for the warm welcome. As I step into this role, I want to make something clear. This department will be built on one principle: everyone's voice matters. If you have an idea, I want to hear it. If you've been overlooked, I want to see you. And if you've been told you're not enough, I'm here to prove otherwise. Let's build something impossible to ignore. Natalie, I hit send, closed the laptop, and leaned back in my chair, watching the city breathe below. Somewhere across town, my family was probably sitting at dinner, the same table, the same conversations. But for the first time, my absence wasn't a wound, it was a choice. And that made all the difference. They told me I'd never make it without them. They were wrong. I made it without them. I made it because of them. Every dismissal, every overlooked achievement, every time they chose someone else, it all became fuel. And now when they think of success, they'll think of me. Not because I needed their approval, because I didn't. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving you never needed them to be right. If you've ever been the forgotten one, the overlooked one, the one they said would never make it, this story is for you. Share your journey in the comments below. Let's remind each other that being underestimated is just a setup for an unforgettable comeback. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of quiet power and undeniable victory. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And the payoff, worth every second.